Today I've come down to a nursery. This is very likely where you would be getting your trees, at least from another nursery, wholesale or retail. And many of the trees look very nice. There's many full ones that might be appealing. But I want to go from tree to tree in here, different trees, evergreen and deciduous, and show you a few things about good characteristics and bad characteristics, weaknesses or lack of weaknesses, that will help you be able to make a selection and a purchase of a tree that will last for many years once you install it. Some of them are very full and pretty looking, but you have to go beyond that so that you end up with both a pretty or beautiful tree and one that is structurally sound. Okay, here we go. Here I have the camera focused on a Himalayan birch. Eventually it will get white trunks. It's a medium growing tree, and one way that these are sold is with multiple stems or trunks in one root ball. And down here you'll see one on the left and a second on the right, trunks. The stake is the third item there. Anyway, if this tree develops and grows to where these 1.5-inch diameter trunks eventually grow to be 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches diameter, even a foot in diameter as they grow, realize that they're going to push against one another. It won't be able to develop wood in the middle, so a tree like this can split apart. So I would recommend, if you want multiple trunks, to actually get 3 trees, 2 or 3 trees separate, and plant them apart so that the trunks can develop properly. Himalayan birch again, it is Betula jacquemontii, and this one has one trunk. So now, with no other trunk next to it to conflict, the trunk here, as it expands, can develop layer upon layer of wood in all directions as it develops in a landscape situation once it's planted. And this tree here has good branch unions. The branches are coming out not in too tight of a V where they would split off, but when you get a little bit of a U shape in these limbs here that's curved, it allows for layers of wood buildup. So the wider the angle, the better on the branches. So pay attention for that on deciduous trees and evergreens both. Here is a nice little tree. It is called a chitalpa. That is not catalpa, but chitalpa with the CH. And that's a nice full looking little tree there. But I want to go ahead and show you the base of this so that you'll understand about the double trunk or 2-leader situation again. As you see, the tree has 2 stems or 2 leaders there, and really one of these should be removed for a structurally sound tree. So although it's full, if you remove one of those for a sound tree, one that will be strong, you end up losing half of your tree, so your purchase is worth half as much, and you end up with a big pruning cut at the bottom. It's crossing up in here too, so it's tied a little bit, but when the tie is separated, the trunks are still too close together. Here's another chitalpa. Here you have 1 leader or 1 stem, and this is a good structure. The branch angle is coming out wide, leaving a U shape in there where you can have wood development. It's not pinched, and that's what you are looking for on branches. Once again, realize that as you're selecting trees, you may not find a perfect specimen. Sometimes what you have to do is select the strongest tree you can to get one with the least amount of weakness as possible. It's not a perfect world in the nurseries. You will do the best you can. This is the lower part of a Japanese snowbell, which is a Styrax genus. And I'll tell you right now, this one's got 1 stem or trunk, which is good. But down underneath here, if we lift the foliage, there's a branch, significant one proportionately for its size, on the lower left there. And really that's pretty weakly attached, and that needs to be pruned off. So when you check the trees like this and you find something like that, it doesn't mean that you should not purchase that tree, but you need to estimate what percentage of the canopy is going to be removed so that you know how much tree is left once you plant it and remove the defect. From where you're at, you won't be able to tell that this tree is exposed on the east side, but this tree right here, this side of the trunk right here is east. It's facing the sunrise, which is not the hottest sun of the day. And in the nursery, these trees are okay. The ones at the end of the row get more exposure to the sun on the trunk. And that's important if the trunks are not protected. And the nurseries really do not have the resources to put trunk wrap on all their trees. Here's another tree. This one is a flowering pear tree. Behind it is a Styrax Japanese snowbell. And this tree, unlike the last one I showed you, this side of the trunk here is facing the sunset. My preference is usually not to take a tree that's at the end of the row that faces the sunset due to potential sunburn on this tissue here. These trees here that are behind are protected from the canopy of this front tree when the sun sets on the west. And many times when trees like this that are protected come out into a landscape, if the trunk is not wrapped with a protective barrier or screen, the trunks can burn on there. So anyway, I usually go for the interior trees for my choice, or the ones that are on the east side of the row. Some evergreen trees, like this pine here, this is a Scotch pine, will have dead needles on the middle, on the inside of the canopy, maybe rust-colored, brown, or yellowing. This is normal for these trees. This shot right here is in October, and late summer and early fall, the interior needles will shed as the trunk is expanded in the summer, and it forces off a year's worth of needles. So do not be concerned about this natural shedding or discoloration of interior needles. This tree is in the Prunus genus. It is a flowering cherry tree, and a common problem with flowering cherry trees is a bacterial problem that will develop inside the tree in the trunk. And right here, just where this little bit of wrap is attached to the stake on the tree, there's a little bit of an oozing right here from the bacteria. So flowering cherry tree is one, or fruiting cherry tree, it's very important with those that you look to see if there's signs on the trunk of this kind of oozing. A lot of other trees like maple or flowering pear, not near as critical, but this bacterial problem is so common with these cherry trees. Sometimes you can tell that they're that Prunus family by the little slits or horizontal markings on the trunk. But anyway, if you see that on the tree, don't get that one and look for one that has a smooth trunk with no oozing coming out of it. This is another flowering cherry tree. This one was next to the last one. And this tree has no oozing on the trunk. Not only that, the foliage color is good, and it has the wide-spaced branching that is desirable both ways on this left branch and the right one. This would probably be considered the main leader back here. So this tree would be a good choice to purchase in the nursery. This is the trunk of a Japanese snowbell, and the problem with this tree may be hard to identify here on the recording, so I'll point it out. The tree was infested with a boring insect, and right in front of my finger of my glove here is a little fine wood dust, and it's coming down from holes, including one just right in front of my finger up here. And so these boring insects go in and damage trees, and that's something else that you'll want to look for in the trees. It might be a sign that it was stressed, but nonetheless it's a definite sign it has or had the insect and it's done damage, and that's something you do not want to get in a tree. This is a crepe myrtle tree, and the point I want to make with this tree, it's pretty nice looking. It's a large specimen, one of the larger ones in the nursery, and I can tell you right now that down below in here it has a slight weakness in one of the leaders, but the tree can be braced together with a small anchor up above to hold it together. It is such a good looking specimen that to get one without any problems or defects in it of this size could be very hard or near to impossible in some cities during certain seasons. So anyway, this tree wouldn't be a bad choice. It's just a large specimen, and there's remedies for the weaknesses. So don't be afraid to buy a tree like this if the weakness is minimal and you can brace it together or correct it with some pruning.